6:30. I'd like to call to order this special meeting of the Bandera Economic Development Corporation on Thursday, July 30th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. We've got Darcy Hasty, Kate, Lynn Palmer present, Mayor Suzanne Shulman, Lee Carell, and myself, Andrea Jankowski, and our administrative assistant, Megan, all present. And so let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, visitors to be heard is suspended during the declared emergency for governor's orders. And Mayor, you said that 2 hours before the meeting that people can email questions.
So, to bring the consent agenda, why don't we, the visits we heard, I'm sorry. It's not a discussion item. Why don't we discuss that during the board comments?
Okay, fair enough. I'd like to present the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the June 25th, 2020 special meeting of the EDC, the financials. Item number C is the reimbursement of QuickBooks subscription for July, the administrative assistant hours and pay, and some invoices and payments that were.
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay. Lynn Palmer motions and Darcy Hasty seconds. All in favor? Okay, all in favor, none opposed. We are going to move on to our regular agenda items. Item number 5, discussion and possible action regarding temporary suspension of funds or approval of such for EDC incentive grants, not to include the 2020 stimulus business grant. Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to temporarily suspend funding for the EDC incentive grants, excluding 2020 stimulus business grants.
All in favor?
All right. Any discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Discussion. Yes.
I would like to maybe clarify if there's some sort of emergency, straight line winds come in and take off someone's roof. Could we do something to do, or just be a consideration maybe that they could bring to the board and we could just consider it if it's something of that nature instead of just.
I'm thinking that with this motion and the approval, that if there's any special circumstances, that this board will take that into consideration. I think right now what I was trying to achieve is just to suspend the funding for the present EDC incentive grants until we have the chance to look at our budget, see how much money's in there, what the sales tax did this year, bottom line, and then possibly consider bringing back some of the incentive programs, because I think that those were some of them were good, in helping the businesses, and it did establish a business relationship between the EDC and all of the businesses in town. So for now, I think we're just going to be suspending the funding and until further notice.
We have one thing on our agenda to consider, I believe, the funding of TJs. Are we just talking about new obligations, or are we going to fund prior obligations?
Well, I think that's on the agenda,
Actually, that'll be on next month's agenda. It's already been approved. I know. And yes, that's not included. That'll be funded. It's just contingent on the receipt that we're submitting.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Maybe clarifying.
I think that there's the next agenda items will cover that.
Okay.
And I just wanted to say to add to what Lynn was saying, that we don't know what's going to go on. The governor could shut everything down again. He even said we're this far away from it. Doesn't mean I agree with it, but it could happen, and so we don't know if we may need to roll out yet another program within the COVID programs that we already have. And so to, pay for other things coming out of our budget, I don't think it's prudent right now. So.
I agree. So all in favor of suspending the funds for EDC incentive grants, excluding the stimulus business grant? All in favor? None opposed? All right, agenda item number 6, discussion and possible action regarding EDC board reviewing performance agreements, contracts, and instruments and the like during a regular or special meeting of the EDC prior to execution and funding.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a policy that all performance agreements, contracts, and any other instruments for execution and funding be reviewed by the Bandera EDC Board of Directors during a scheduled meeting.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Discussion?
Yes.
My opinion. Megan puts a packet together. Couple of y'all, us look at it. We're about to appoint a secretary and or secretary treasurer. That's the person that's actually in charge of this kind of stuff. Do we really need to have the entire board review every packet every time? Then your signer reviews it, and then it goes to City Hall. City Hall reviews it. Is it really necessary for the entire board to see it? Yes, Lynn.
I don't know if what you're talking about. City Hall reviews
Okay,
it. I mean,
packet,
what we're
okay.
talking about is all performance agreements that are like with the applications for incentives, any kind of contracts that are entered into with an individual and the EDC and other instruments. I think that my idea is that, yes, the whole board does want to be involved with reviewing everything before anything is funded.
Okay, so, okay, fine. I give up. I don't give up. I just don't think that my point is getting across.
It's not, but maybe I can help. I'm not opposed to the whole board seeing everything. I do agree with what the mayor's saying in that, especially when we're trying to do the COVID stuff, when we've got 3 or 4 people looking at it on the board because we already have a committee doing it. And then we've got 2 people from the city looking at it because like the mayor and Jill are looking at it too before the checks can be signed. I'm all about us being able to look at it before the checks are signed, which is what we're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that it's necessary or prudent to the cause for us to look at every single document before everything is done with it. I want to see stuff before the check is signed. I don't think we need to sit here and have a 3-hour meeting because that's what it's going to come down to before somebody gets a check, especially when we're talking about the COVID stuff. Now, later on, yeah, when we're talking about giving sign grants, absolutely. Have no problem with that. But when we're talking about this, the COVID stuff, including that, we want to get the money out to the people. When we're having emergency grants, we want to get the money out.
And in support of that, our applications have no guarantee of confidentiality, and we're asking for a lot of financial information. And I, as a business owner, should I be in front of the EDC, I wouldn't want the whole world to know my business information. So that's why I would feel uncomfortable as a board member discussing each and every applicant in an open meeting.
So I'm understanding it's not necessarily going through all of the financials and whatnot, more it's that the contracts are in front of everyone so that we can see what's in the contract. The signatories are already here. Sign the contract, sign the check, and then they're done.
And
Not
supporting
necessarily.
documentation and.
Right. Well, that will be sent, I think, beforehand because that's usually done in all the packages. And I think what it is, everyone does their due diligence by looking at the receipts and the financials and things like that. And what it is I think there's been some problems in the past with no one knowing quite what is in the performance agreement per se. And then just having the agreement once they've looked at it on their own time, through email or whatnot, or coming up here, and then just sitting down and having, okay, this is the performance agreement. Are y'all okay with this? Go through it and sign. Everyone's here already for a meeting. Sign everything, and in my opinion, the contracts and the checks could go out the next morning.
Yeah, if I need to change that to final review, if I need to change that wording to final review so that everything is reviewed by the board and then the final will come to the board in a meeting to execute. If I need to do that, I'll be glad to add that to the final review, if that would suffice. That way, everything is already reviewed by the board through email or however we send that out, and then it's on the agenda for the final review and execution.
Whether if it was in the consent agenda, where the board has all reviewed it, but discussion about these folks' financial situation or why they need this or why I think she doesn't need that, I don't think that needs to be an open meeting, and I'll just let it go with that.
I disagree with that. I think that we need to bring everything for the final review. I think that we can be discretionary on what we discuss, and everything is open records. Everything is that is submitted to EDC is open records. So if somebody wants to have that information, they can get it regardless. I think that we can use discretion while discussing it at a meeting.
And I think we need to look carefully at our applications to make sure that we're not disclosing anything that would be confidential.
There's one application. I mean, they've been using the same applications and they've been coming before the board. Those board applications have been coming before the EDC board for 4 years. They've been looking at all the applications.
Excuse me, ma'am. The recent one I saw required spouse's information. This is on the COVID stuff.
That's not an application that we're using at all. Not at
I'm
all.
talking about project, I'm talking about the COVID stuff.
I know, but you're wrong on that. That application does not include husband's salary or anything like that.
Okay, well, the expanded application included more financial information.
But we're not using that.
Okay,
So it's a moot point.
well, it was approved to be used at a meeting, and
Nobody's used it.
okay.
They didn't use it.
Yes, Darcy.
So are you okay with how we're doing it now, though, like how we did at the last meeting, where when the meeting was over, the information was back there and we signed off on it? The checks were signed off and all that.
I personally, in my own opinion, I do not like that, but I mean, apparently the rest of the board doesn't have a problem with it. So, I personally don't like that. I would much rather see all of the final come before the whole board to get for review so that we all know what's going on and we're all informed about every action that's being taken by this board.
Well, and the reason I asked that is because I liked it personally. And of course, I'm not a business owner here in Bandera, but I know that there have been at least 2 business owners that I've been told, they didn't tell me personally, I've been told by third party that they were upset about things that have been talked about in public because this is a public meeting. So we haven't been discreet with names. We haven't been discreet with information, and that's wrong. It's going to happen again. It's upsetting, and I understand it, and I don't want to be part of that. I do want the public to have the information. I'm the first one to say that. Everybody should know that, because I have screamed from the highest mountain when tone was not being followed. But we do have to be discreet with people's information, and we all do need to see the information before we sign off on the checks. We have public funds, and we need to be, careful with how we're spending this money. But we also need to be careful with people's information. I understand what you're saying about it's public information, but people watching it here versus them actually getting up off the couch and coming in here and filling out the paperwork and being willing to wait and look at it is totally different. They're going to watch that way before they're going to fill out the paperwork. So,
And I think that if we have any questions when we're sent all of that to review beforehand, that we can ask those questions at that time. What I'm asking is that the final review, that the final funding, everything comes before the board. We sign the check, we sign off on the application and the performance, the small performance agreement, and then that is they get the checks the next day. We do it the same night.
Yeah.
And I think there's gonna be some instances where it's going to actually take a board vote if somebody doesn't agree with this or that or whatever.
Call the
It would
vote.
have to be discussed.
Call the vote, please.
So would you like to restate your motion?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a policy that all performance agreements, contracts, and any other instruments before execution and funding be reviewed, have the final reviewed by the Bandera EDC Board of Directors during a scheduled meeting.
All in favor? Okay. I have Deanna, Lynn, myself, and Lee in favor, and all opposed. Okay, Darcy and Mayor opposed. Motion passes. All right, let's move on to agenda item number, where are we at now? 7. Discussion and possible action regarding EDC board reviewing expenditures and funding obligations during a regular or special meeting of the EDC prior to checks being signed and issued.
Make a motion to adopt the policy that expenditures and funding obligations come before the Bandera EDC Board of Directors for approval during a scheduled meeting.
Discussion?
Question? Are we talking about the regular expenses of not the new application, not the funding that we just, item 6, but what other funding expenditures and obligations are you?
Okay, well, so for instance, if there has been funding over a 3-year period and those applicants or recipients need to meet certain criteria in order to receive the funding, then I think that should come before the board, that the president and vice president and one other person should not be the ones that are approving that funding, that's something that should come before the whole board for review to make sure that they're meeting the criteria for the funding. That, and then I think like bills, every day, all of our bills to come before the board so that we see what's being paid. And that's usually under the consent agenda as well. So that's what that would be for.
Okay.
This isn't in our bylaws already?
Can I answer that?
Yes.
Some of this is in our bylaws, Darcy, but it doesn't say to come to do it in a meeting. It does not say that it comes before the board in the meeting. All it says is the board of directors, to have the approval by the Bandera EDC board of directors, but it does not say during a regular meeting, during a scheduled meeting. So therefore, it was happening because there is no policy in place to do that it come before a scheduled meeting.
Sorry, one more again. So instead of making this a motion during a meeting, is it something that we need to amend I'd rather it be in bylaws instead of.
It's kind of procedural, so I think that, a policy to adopt, a motion to adopt the policy so that it goes in our policies and procedures. We probably should have found the place where it needed to go. And certainly if we need to ask our attorney, if he feels like this has to be something that a resolution has to be created for, and that there's a change. Usually that's only for the bylaws though. For procedural policy, I believe that we can amend those.
And specifically, if this isn't in our policy and procedures or bylaws, it needs to be for future boards and not just for us today.
Right, and that's what we would be making it for, is for future boards.
Yeah, our bylaws read in section 206, titled Checks and Drafts. All checks, drafts, or orders for the payment of money, notes, or other evidence of indebtedness issued in the name of the BEDC shall be approved by the BEDC Board of Directors and signed or bear the facsimile signature of 2 BEDC directors who are approved by resolution to sign such instrument. So it does not specifically say in the meeting, but it does need to be approved. Which these items will be sent out in advance. So hopefully if there's any questions whatsoever that arise because of those things, they can be remedied before we come to a meeting, and it's just, quick, and same with the contracts and all that stuff. It's not to draw out a meeting, but
Yeah,
just to
right.
give anyone the opportunity if there's any discussion that needs to happen
All right.
with discretion, and I agree with that, and that has not always happened in the past. I think we need to be more mindful of that, certainly, but it's more just to have everybody present. And, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I believe at one point not too long ago, there was discussion of bringing the bylaws up to date, and policies, procedures would of course follow, but again, we're talking about quite a few attorney hours, so I believe that this would be a policy issue as well, and I don't believe that amendment to the policies need to be made. It's going on record, and then when we do update the policies and procedures, that's one thing that could be added as a new item or a clarification. Okay. My opinion.
If we can note that somewhere, because that definitely needs to be.
Yeah, and
We're,
So I'm glad you caught that earlier.
we will be sure and get all of these policies in place.
I know we had attempted to amend the bylaws several months ago and consulted with the attorney, and he recommended some things that needed to change. But I know it's quite costly to have all that. So hopefully we can clear up a lot of these things before we take that on. Any more discussion? Okay. So all in favor? Okay. None opposed? All right, agenda item number 8, an update on EDC stimulus grant applications to include recipients, amount funded, pending applications, and remaining funds. Should have received this lovely, there's my spreadsheet. With those updates, we do still have some pending applications. We're waiting on some supporting documentation.
Sorry, how much do we have left in the, I don't see that on here. How much do we have left in that fund, stimulus fund?
Megan, do you know that? It's probably in our financials somewhere.
27,000,
16,813.
showing 27,937.
Yeah, we're, there's
Well,
two
it's in
lines.
two places. It's on the next page as well. Megan, you want to tell us which number to use? I know we discussed this at the last meeting.
It's the COVID, that was specifically, the 100,000 was specifically for COVID. So it's the one on the first page.
27,937.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
The one on the second page is just, thank you.
That's what I'm working with the CPA to get corrected so that the numbers fall in order.
So do we have any, so we have just a couple that are outstanding that we need to take care of. And we're waiting on some documentation that they need to provide. Are we giving them a X amount of days to provide that? Or like I think at one time we were saying, once we requested that information, that there was only going to be, like they needed to provide it within 5 days. So have we Have we said anything to these applicants that there's a deadline, or you're just gonna give them as much time forever? Because, you know, this part of the stimulus is over. That the deadline is already come and gone. And so I think that if we don't receive something soon, that maybe give them another 5 days. And then after that, possibly just, you know, not fund them. That's just my opinion. That's my opinion.
Okay, yes.
Are the outstanding applications or what's not enough information, are these the hotel ones or are these a new batch? Then I would say email them tomorrow and say you've got till
5 days.
Monday at 5 o'clock or you're done. I'm sorry, this cannot drag on and on and on.
We have to know what our number is.
Yes, before we go into the context.
Do we need to make a motion for that? Okay, because it's not really different. So it's not on the agenda to really make a
Well, it's
motion.
an update.
So I think the update would be those outstanding applicants that haven't turned in their supporting documentation, email them tomorrow and give them 5 days to respond and give the proper documentation needed to receive the funding. Is that okay with y'all? I mean, do we need to take a vote, or, I mean, I don't want to do like, I don't want to do a consensus thing. The mayor doesn't really want to do consensus
I don't like
anymore.
I don't like it.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, but I think we have an idea what the board wants, and if the president would direct perhaps the secretary to
we
follow
can make a
through with what
motion
the
that
board
Andrea
says.
direct the,
Well, we can't make a motion because it's not a motion, but I believe there's a pretty good idea of what we want to happen.
So that 5 days, what date is that? Just so that we-
going to be, today's the 30th, so business days, I'm assuming, 5 business days.
I would give them till 5 p.m. on
2, 3,
August-
4,
July
5.
31st.
There's August 6th is the 5th day.
No. Yes?
Yes. Today's the 30th.
I'm like,
Well,
Mayor, that's one day.
I was gonna give them until tomorrow.
Gave them 8 hours, Mayor.
So August 6th
Oh my gosh, it is August. isn't
by
it?
5 p.m.? Okay.
And then just to add to that discussion, after that, I did request that the hot tax be put on the city council agenda for the agenda on August 6th, so that we can get that ironed, the city council can get that ironed out, and then possibly come to us so that we can begin some funding and get the direction and the requirements that are going to be needed to receive that funding.
The agenda item reads to give clarification and direction to EDC on the use of hot funds by blah, blah, blah. And I apologize to you again, because I know we wanted it earlier, but we just had such a big agenda the last time that we really just didn't have time to enter that session. So,
And your city council's next meeting is August the 6th.
August 6th at 6 p.m.
All right. All right. Any other comments or discussion? Okay. So moving on to item 9, discussion and possible action regarding scheduling a joint workshop between the BDC and City Council to review the EDC budget.
yes. Are we talking about the 2021 budget?
Yes.
Okay. Council will be getting the first draft of the budget on the 6th. We'll be having a budget workshop shortly thereafter. As soon as we get a firm number, Jay and I'll be working on this tomorrow, but as soon as we get a firm sales tax projection, I will pass it to you in an email so y'all can put in your budget format and decide how you want to proceed from there. I'm pretty sure it's going to be very similar to what you received for the 1920 year. We've been outstanding in our sales tax revenue through June, but now we haven't received June yet. I'm sorry, you received May. So we're going into the third quarter now, and it's slowing down. Nationally, they're predicting an 18% increase over where we currently are. However, I don't know how we're going to come out, but we'll give you a budget number to start with, and y'all can begin the budget and get ready to present to directors, and we'll set the date for a council workshop on the 6th, and then after y'all have had a chance to meet and review your budget, then we'll, whenever you want to, we'll have a joint workshop.
Lynn, what is the deadline for getting in, for the EDC to get the budget to the city council?
September, before we pass the final budget. I haven't seen our budget calendar yet. We don't have a budget calendar yet. But it has to be filed with the county clerk no later than 5 p.m. on September the 30th. So I'm not sure what day that falls on.
That's on a Wednesday.
It's on a Wednesday. Then we will probably try to file it the previous Monday or Friday. And, you know, if we get this far ahead of it this year, then we'll be able to get it done. We'd like to have it before September 30. However, we're not incorporating the EDC budget into the city budget since you now have your own finances. When the city was in control of your finances, we incorporated it into the city budget. So if something goes wrong, and don't use this as, well, you know, had a flat tire, couldn't get to town. Worst comes to worst, the council can adopt or can approve your 2021 budget after we have filed our budget, but I really would not like to do it that way, if it's at all possible.
Did you want to say something, Fiona? So should we schedule a workshop? Just, we should probably schedule one in August.
What I was gonna say is, I guess we're gonna need to wait for the numbers from the city, from the sales tax, and then once we get those, we can maybe schedule a workshop for the EDC to go over our budget, and then if you wanna have a joint workshop with the city council, we could possibly do that.
Who is going to prepare the budget, the original draft?
I guess we will probably,
With input from y'all, and then we'll, as a board, we'll look at it. Okay, you should have your beginning number tomorrow, plus you'll also know your interest income and your receivable income, what those, you know, will be your incomes for this year. So you'll have your revenue, and all you have to do is figure out your expenses, your administrative expenses, your long-term expenses, what you're gonna owe for this year. And then we'll take it from there. Deanna, you've gone through several budgets.
Thank goodness we have you on here for that experience. What is your opinion that we should, after we get these numbers, should we set, we're all learning here, should we set a workshop? For the
We've
EDC?
always done that before, and I
Okay.
just think it just moves things along that way. In the meeting, it's pretty much, because in the workshop, you can tweak a few
Mhm.
things, and then in the meeting, it's when it's final and y'all approve or not approve, and then it goes.
But we need a draft to start with.
Right. Oh, yeah, well, it's all gonna be a draft until you guys approve it.
But even before we go to a workshop,
Right.
we need to have
Right.
something to write.
Right, well, sure. That's what I mean. I mean, we'll have it all. Yeah, we don't go to a budget workshop blindly. We have something in front. So we'll have a draft.
also since we'll have those numbers within a week.
I can give it to you. I'm hoping to give it to you tomorrow. I have an idea in my head, my projection. And I'm expecting Jay's to be very close if you want to start with the same number that you had this year. Because if you look at our sales tax number, right now, we are both the EDC and the city are well exceeding our budgeted amounts with 4 months left to report. But we won't actually have our final sales tax numbers or liquor tax numbers until we get to November. So in November,
That's why we've always on the promotions, whenever we finalize our budget, we have to go back to an
let's
amendment.
have to amend it.
Right,
Yeah.
because it falls, yes, right.
And
we get-
so, yeah, you'll amend your, but you'll go with the same.
Right.
But you'll receive more if we receive more in the coming year. That's what that.
Right.
But you're at 239,000 right now out of a projected 275,
Not 270.
and we're at 478 out of 550. So you know, we're only got 4 more months to go, and we're gonna hit that and then some. But again, I think we need to be conservative this coming year because we don't know what we're going to be up against.
So I think we should schedule. I mean, we know we're gonna have the information, so, Deanna,
So our regular meeting would fall on the 27th. So I don't know if you guys want to go for the same day or if you want a different day.
If we have, because the other numbers are in your baby, but y'all, if I have you a sales tax number tomorrow, and y'all could look at a workshop, at a draft budget prior to the 27th.
Right.
And we could get a joint workshop in somewhere between here and there, because we're gonna have public hearings and tax hearings, all this kind of stuff, as are you. So I will push council to schedule, do you think y'all can have a draft agenda?
budget.
It's a lot easier than it sounds like, and I'm sure Deanna will be glad if everybody can. Let me find my damn calendar. Okay, if I get this to do the 6th, if y'all could have a budget workshop by the, tomorrow, then you'll have a week to work on it. You think you could have a budget workshop the week of between the 9th or the 10th and the 14th of,
That's what I was thinking,
Of
that
August.
second week in August,
On the 13th?
the 13th is.
Or, I'm sorry, I'm just going for a
Thursday.
Thursday unless someone wants a different day.
and then I will also schedule a budget workshop with the council, hopefully that same week, and then the next week, perhaps, well, we're gonna have a meeting. Perhaps after our meeting on the 20th, we could have a joint workshop, possibly.
The same day following the meeting, is that what you're saying?
On the
The
20th?
same day as
Our
the
meeting,
meeting, just following.
depends on how long our agenda is. But let me get with Jill before we put any of this into stone, because I have to get our budget calendar. And until I have our budget calendar, I don't know how.
But we
treasurer
could,
has
we could
scheduled.
still schedule our workshop on August
Oh,
13th.
absolutely, please. And I will give you that number
Let's
tomorrow.
go, yes, unless somebody has a conflict with that
Oh,
on
no, I'm good.
Thursday the 13th, 6:30,
6:30.
budget workshop.
And remember these, what date? 13th. I'm gonna write it on that. I gotta be-
August, 13th,
August 13th.
Thursday.
Wednesday, August 13th.
Thursday.
Remember too that, what was I gonna tell you? Remember? Oh, you know, as we go through all of this, I don't want to hear about the public. That's really a sad situation we're in right now. But if you get input from the public and you can let us know what's going on, you know, either they want more funding for this or less funding for that or something. I think it really gives a tool. Anyway, okay, August the 13th is our first budget workshop.
And then we'll wait to hear from you when we're gonna do a joint. Or do you want to schedule that on the 20th? You said you want to talk to Joe.
Council will have to make that decision. I don't get to make that decision. So we'll be running the budget calendar past council.
So we'll just say tentatively.
Tentatively.
Maybe if we can just,
Do we,
The sooner we get this moving, the better.
do we have the capability, because I know like we're on Zoom now, and I've seen, because I watch all the city council meetings, that y'all can project up on the screen and you have the lawyers and the street people and everything up there. Can we not do that with the public? If the public want to speak during the workshops and stuff like that, that they call in on Zoom and that we're able to see them speak and be part, we need to let the public be part of this stuff. When it comes to budgeting and stuff like that, it's important. The public needs to be part of these discussions when it comes to money, and whether it's the city, as a citizen myself, I want to be part of the discussion when it comes to the city money. And if I wasn't on this board, I'd want to be part of the discussion when it comes to the money being spent with EDC too. And so as a citizen of Bandera, I want to say that I feel like we should be able to let the people speak, obviously when it's appropriate. We can project them up here where we can hear them just like if they were here in the audience.
The governor has lifted restrictions, put restrictions down, lifted that. This would be something for us to look into, and depending on what we're allowed to do, I see no reason, because I like to input too. I like to be able to explain why we're going in certain directions. And so,
Well, I want to hear what they have to say, what their, what the business centers are. I frequent a lot of the businesses here, but I don't frequent all of them. So I don't know what all the business owners think or want, or all the citizens think or want. And so I think getting their opinion is important.
And I noticed on the Zoom too, they could even ask questions, without doing the, and maybe, if someone's watching that, and maybe the administrator or the president could present that question.
well, normally
during
that's
the
the
meeting.
job of whoever's running, the city secretary normally takes care of that at our meeting. But remember too, Robert rules, there are certain times when questions and answers are appropriate and certain
Sure.
times when they're not.
Even in a workshop,
So,
even in a workshop.
even in a workshop. So,
Do we have to have the Zoom for the workshop?
yes,
Has to-
Open meeting.
it's an open meeting.
So I don't have to do minutes.
I think before we agree to allow people to ask questions live, that there might need to be some policies and procedures put in place on how, how many are you going to let speak, how long you're going to let them speak.
The
what-
same rules as in.
That would be up to your chairman.
Well, and I'm wondering though, if it's appropriate to have them do this during a workshop. Is there maybe a time before? I'm not opposed at all to hearing from the public, so that's not what I'm saying, but maybe not during a workshop, prior to?
A workshop doesn't have a visitors to be heard portion.
That's what I was,
A workshop is an opportunity for the boards and the council to speak freely to one another as a quorum without violating the Open Meetings Act. So normally what we do during a workshop, if a citizen has an interest in a particular item that we're discussing, for instance, if we're discussing painting Main Street blue and a citizen has a business on the Main Street, says, I really don't want the street painted blue because that's not, I just can't stand that color. That's my ex-girlfriend's favorite color. Then that person will get to speak, but you can't just say, well, I really want to talk about planting flowers over here. Well, that's not the subject we're on. Workshops are very difficult to take a lot of managing with visitors or comments from the public.
and no decisions obviously are being made during a workshop, and, I would value the input. I just would like to have that input prior to our workshop.
Could we maybe advertise on our website that if they have any questions regarding the budget, to submit those questions prior to the workshop and
We could do like city council does. If you have a visitors to be heard comment, please send it by email 2 hours prior to the meeting. And then the city secretary, in this case, whoever we designate at the appropriate time would read that comment and then you could respond. However, remember this too, we're going into all this about visitors. We very seldom get visitors at workshops and public hearings, even live.
Just nerds like me.
And I would like to have if there are people that are interested, I would like for them to have the opportunity to participate if they want.
Sure, and I think that one, it's a lot easier to control on Zoom because you can stop. First you can tell them, hey, this is inappropriate at this time. That's item number 7 or whatever. But also in a workshop, as a citizen, a concerned citizen that often goes to meetings, you don't know what your question is going to be or your topic is going to be until that happens in a workshop, because things organically happen, conversations organically happen during the workshop that isn't just on a structured agenda like today's agenda. So, I may not think I'm gonna want to say something. But I think it's a great idea to put, like Lynn said, an advertisement and say, look, here's the budget, what we have projected right now. This is what we know. If there's something you want to speak about, please feel free to email it to us. Also, you can put it in the comments section on Zoom, and the secretary will comment at the appropriate time. We'll read your comment. And also, you can raise your hand on Zoom, because that's an option. You can raise your hand on Zoom, and then we'll let you come in live. So there's 3 different options there, where 2 of them are much more manageable because it's not in person. And a lot of people don't want to be seen up on that screen either. So
I appreciate everybody's input, but we're way off subject. Discussion and scheduling a workshop, so can
Yes.
we move on, street?
thanks, Mayor.
No problem.
Okay. Agenda item number 10, discussion and possible action regarding the Christmas lights in the city park and the county courthouse.
It's been
I'm gonna make a motion for discussion. I'd like to make a motion to extend the deadline to August 31st, 2020 for requested proposals from local groups interested in organizing and managing the 2020 Christmas lights in the city park.
Any discussion?
So it looks like that we had some advertisement. I don't know if you guys got to see on, it was in the Profit, and I don't know if it was in an article in the Bandera Bulletin. The one thing that I noticed it was not at was on our website. It was not on the EDC website, where people that are looking at the EDC website could see that we were looking for nonprofit organizations for proposals. So I would definitely like to see that happen. But we got no responses, And I would like to give another 30-day opportunity for those that, there's just so much going on right now in everybody's lives. So I would like to be able to get out the proper advertisement so that possibly that we can find an organization that would want to manage the Cowboy Christmas lights in the city park.
I agree. And clarification, we had like a 4-way conversation at different times with different people about the courthouse lights. Commissioner Mosley called me and said, hey, what about these lights? And I said, I don't know, what the heck are you talking about? He said, the Christmas lights. I said, well, I don't know. I said, last year we gave them to y'all and y'all put them up. He said, well, we're trying to budget, so if y'all are gonna give them to us and nobody's gonna put them up, I need to budget to get some help. I said, okay, well, okay. And I passed it on along, so, yeah.
And I don't think he's budgeting to get some help. I think he's budgeting to buy more lights if he needs more lights for the 2 post Christmas trees. I don't believe he's going to try to get volunteers again like he did last year. He did all that with volunteers. I even went one Saturday and helped put
Well,
those
he
up.
thought he was-
I think Andrea does have the inventory of everything that we have in that pod for the Christmas lights. I would like to give some of those, I don't know how many, I think I talked to Jack a little bit and he said he thought he had about 25 maybe last year up there on the courthouse lawn. But I could be wrong. And 25 of the T-posts with the lights to go on the courthouse lawn.
I have actually, I have 2 separate inventories. One is for the Bandera courthouse and the other is the Christmas in the park. Oh, good. So it's pretty specific and very organized. I know, Lynn, did you go up there and look?
I did go look in the pod. It's very well organized. Zoko did an excellent job putting that stuff back into that pod. Everything is very well organized. You can walk in and see everything in its place. I was very impressed.
And I don't know if the commissioner has this inventory, so I will forward that to him so he knows. I think that's what he was questioning was, what do I have and where is it?
Now, do we need to make a motion to allow him to have what he had last year? Can I see that? I haven't seen what he had.
just that
This
first page is
And
missing
then
the
one
ones.
what was approved last year for them. I don't know if we need that, because I have the minutes where we approved, because they were pretty specific.
Oh, 18 trees. Lights. Its attorney made a motion to approve the Friends of the Christmas lights, the courthouse lawns request for lights to support the nativity scene, 18 trees plus one giant tree with a star on top.
Is that the same as the inventory?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. If you want to pass that, maybe Darcy might want.
And here's-
So do we need to make a motion to allow him to go ahead and have access to those, or do you want to wait until and see if we have the proposals? What we
What?
get in the proposals, if we get any response.
Beyond the motion, are we advertising the newspaper as well?
I think we should. Anybody
Okay,
have
quick
any
question.
comment on that?
If we do advertise the newspaper, could we please clip the copy every week and file it someplace? Because we got a bill for $180, but there's no proof of what we're paying for.
I thought we were, I don't remember it being an actual advertisement.
I
Yeah,
don't know,
it
it was
was
an article.
It's 18 ads at 3 by 6, 18 of them at $10 a piece for $180. So,
I don't,
but it came to the city and not to EDC. We put it in the box and there's no tear sheet, there's nothing.
what was that
Do
for?
we know what that was for?
It says classified.
The only ad we placed was
For the stimulus?
the deadline on the stimulus.
Oh, so that's already been in the paper.
And
But we have no
Lee, did you
proof
want
that
to?
it's been in the paper.
Yeah, and I have that here for those minutes.
So it was advertised in the city, in the Bandera Bulletin.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw it in there, but not in classifieds for the Christmas. I mean, it was in the story, but it wasn't.
It was,
Right.
Yeah, I knew it was in
Yeah,
the
that's
story.
why I was like, we shouldn't have been charged for that.
Yeah, that's, I thought it was just in the story. Did you see it in the classifieds or in the?
And I don't know what that is. And I don't know who decided it was an EDC bill unless they called Bandera Bulletin and that's what it was. Did y'all advertise or, no, applicants, city did that. Let's clear that up. But I would like to see tear sheets or take it out. I'd like to, proofread the copy before it goes out and, just.
I get the paper, y'all just let me know.
Well, we all get paper every week,
Right.
I didn't even think to go back there.
Okay, so do I need to amend my motion to put the advertisement, or that's in discussion and we all know that we want that on the Bandera Profit, Business of Bandera Bulletin, and on our website?
Now that is for the lights in the park. The county still gets what they got last year, or we're gonna redo that? Or how is
Well,
that?
as far as I'm concerned, that's what belongs to them.
Okay.
So it doesn't belong to them, that's what they got.
Belongs to us.
Yeah,
It
that
doesn't
belongs
belong
to
to
us, yes. Yeah, that's what we allowed them to have last year for the courthouse, decorating the courthouse. So I would not mind going ahead and, that list to let the county have that. Do we need to make a motion for that?
Do you already have a motion on the table though?
Yeah, the motion I have,
I'm like,
the
hold on.
motion I have was the motion to extend the deadline to August 31st, 2020 for requesting proposals from local groups interested in organizing and managing the 2020 Christmas lights in the city park. That's what the proposal was for the city
And I
park.
second.
So let's vote on that because this is a two-part, it might have better been 2 agenda items. So let's go ahead and vote on that. We can still have a second motion on the same agenda item. So.
Yes.
I'm in favor.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, none opposed.
Okay, do you have another? Oh, I'm sorry. Suzanne.
Do you want to make another motion, Lynn?
Let me just think real quick. Like to make a motion to approve to give to the county courthouse for the Christmas lights, the list that, where is it?
Same thing
I'm
I
so
got last
sorry, guys. I apologize. I wasn't ready to make a
You
motion.
want me
Go ahead. I withdraw mine.
I make a motion that we allow the county to use the same list of inventory from last year of the Christmas lights for the county court.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Thank you,
All right, none
Darcy.
opposed. Okay, agenda item 11, discussion of possible action regarding an audit performed by Beckendorf and Knott.
I just have a quick question for Megan. Oh, I'm sorry, we need a,
I make a motion that we accept the audit performed by Nivedorf and Knott
I'll second for discussion.
for 1920.
for 2020.
Megan, when the journal
2020.
entries were made, did it change our beginning balance equity in any shape or form?
I have not made those journal entries
You
yet.
haven't made
I
them
was waiting for it to get approved.
That's it. I was waiting for drama, that's it.
Do we have did we get a second on that motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Darcy, second.
No. I'm hoping we have more money to start with this last year than we thought we had. Because if there's a change in the opening balance equity, then we've got more money than what our closing balance, our beginning balance is different than it was anyway.
We'll have city council give us more money. Call for it.
Not like jargon.
All in favor of approving the audit? Okay, none opposed. Item number 12, discussion of possible action regarding the appointment of the EDC secretary and treasurer.
I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Deanna McCabe as the BEDC secretary.
I want to second that, but for discussion only.
Okay.
So if you read our bylaws, it defines the duties of the secretary and the treasurer, and pretty much their admin assistant's duties. So I would say, why not have a secretary / treasurer in Vienna? Everybody have one? And, well, I mean, and that way Megan could report to Deanna, and because, it's the financials, the minutes, and all this kind of stuff, so she could run through Deanna, and Deanna could say, yep, looks good to me, and then take it to the rest of the board, and just have one more set of eyes, because previously we've not had a secretary or a treasurer, and according to Monty, we could survive just fine with the president, vice president, but then he says the local government code requires 4 officers. So I don't know how y'all want to handle it, but I'll second your motion. But for discussion, I would ask you to amend it that we appoint her secretary and secretary / treasurer. Okay.
So I would like to ask Deanna if she would mind taking on the position of secretary and treasurer.
She done.
Both. It is,
She
I
did
know.
that.
And I know you're, I know you're very, we look alike now here. I know you're very thorough, but no, not in appearance, but I'm much.
No, I wasn't talking about that. Yes. No, I wouldn't mind at all. I would be honored.
So I'll amend my motion to read. I'd like to make a motion. Do you need to withdraw your second to go over? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Deanna McCabe as the BEDC secretary / treasurer.
And I second.
All in favor?
Congratulations, ma'am.
Thank you, Deanna.
Welcome to your.
I think you and Megan will make a good team.
I think so too. think Megan can learn from her too, the way to
Yeah,
look.
I think they'll learn from each other.
Yeah,
Exactly.
certainly. Agenda item number 13, discussion of possible action regarding changing the meeting time of the EDC regular meetings. Why did we do that again?
I thought
We did
somebody on the
discuss-
board was asking for the.
For an
I'm
earlier
sorry,
time?
I should have written my name, sorry.
Asking for a 6 o'clock meeting.
Do you want to make a motion to
I'd
that
like to
effect,
make a
Lee?
motion to move our regular scheduled meetings to 6 p.m.
Okay, discussion?
I cannot do the 6th. My store doesn't close until 6.
And I really do have a problem getting here at 6 o'clock from Ingram. I was like speeding over here this evening because we're just so busy at work. So 6:30 works better for me.
And does anybody know if this is a bylaw amendment because the city is an ordinance amendment. Every time we change the time or date, we have to change the ordinance. So if it's not in stone anywhere, then that's fine. Whatever y'all decide.
It's fine with me as long as it's after 5:30. I vote yes for whatever. On that.
I believe it's the
Let's
day,
get it going.
the day of the month. I don't know that it's specific on time.
Okay.
Does anybody else?
I don't know that it has, and I think that those bylaws are probably two changes
13.
away, because I think we changed it twice since that manual was done. As far as even the whole day.
Thank you, Meg.
Well, be that as it may, I mean, we've got it on record. We can discover later what we need to do with it.
Yes, in our bylaws, under regular meetings, it says the BECD.
Well, again.
Is that right? BEDC will hold regular scheduled meetings at a minimum of once per month and at a time and place determined by the EDC board of directors. So, yeah.
I can withdraw the motion if it's an inconvenience. I mean, I don't want to.
You don't really need to withdraw it. I'll just call a vote and then you'll leave it.
Without a
pass or
second,
not.
it's not seconded, it dies for like a second.
I think it
was
was
a
already
second.
second.
It was
There
second,
a
just for
second.
discussion.
Darcy did. so
For
we need-
discussion.
We need to wait till
Wait on
Darcy gets back, yes.
And then we'll take a vote. We are, what's the original motion? Did you make the original motion? No, Lee did. Okay. And what was that again? To change the meeting time?
To 6.
Change meeting time to 6. Darcy seconded. All in favor?
We discussed when you were going.
And opposed? Okay. Meeting time stands at 6:30. All right.
Trying to help you out, Lee.
I know.
Agenda item 14, discussion and possible action regarding reassignment of EDC digital data, including passwords to any EDC programs and accounts. So right now Megan has access to QuickBooks and the email account. So we need to. Do I have a motion?
So I guess I misunderstood the agenda item. So
Motion. What?
I have a motion ready if you want me to read the motion, but I don't know if it's gonna really go with this agenda item.
What is your,
Who has access to email and QuickBooks accounts and any other EDC?
Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion that we adopt the policy that all EDC digital data, passwords, email addresses used for the EDC business be turned over to the Bandera EDC Board of Directors to take over the account or provide proof to the Bandera EDC directors the address has been terminated. A policy to include penalties.
I was second for discussion. I don't know if this was.
We're talking about the existing EDC, everything that we don't have the one email address that's still kind of nebulous and then.
That's what I was referring to. What are you
What are you
referring
referring
to,
to,
Andrew?
Nancy?
Well, just
Andrea?
now that we have a secretary and treasurer, should Deanna have
Mhm.
access to QuickBooks and
That was the motion I would make.
Or I would say,
And
yeah, or the
Oh,
I
president.
do, yeah, and what do I have access to email, or is that something that Megan does and forwards to me?
My
I
opinion.
withdraw my motion, I guess, because it has nothing to do with this agenda.
I withdraw my second.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that Deanna, as well as Megan, sorry, you're awesome, sorry. Have the passwords to EDC digital data, including passwords to any EDC programs and accounts. And that, actually, I don't want to name Deanna, the secretary / treasurer have those passwords, and the president of the EDC have access to the passwords of the email only.
I'll second that.
May I? Why don't we create a Bandera EDC president, whatever you want to call it, email account that passes from president to president to president, stays within the corporation so that there's a history there, and rather than every time somebody pops up, get a new email address.
Okay, Lynn, I'm sorry. Lynn.
I would agree with that, but I don't want to do anything like that until we get a policy in place that says all of that needs to be turned over to the board of directors once anybody leaves that position or leaves the board. I want to be sure that we have a policy in place that says they have to turn those passwords, those email addresses over to the board or face some kind of penalty. So I would agree with that,
I don't know if
but
we can enforce
we can.
Okay, Deanna.
Well, I thought that was the original reason in 2016 when we formed the Bandera EDC email, was for that very reason, for it to pass along to the board, whether it be president, secretary, because sometimes it's not just the president, something happens to the president, the vice president is gonna need it. So in having two emails, if someone's gonna email to the president's email, and then maybe, just having one central one, to me, would have everyone on board, regardless of who it passes through. Again, if something happens to the president or the admin or something, it would just, to me, would be less.
I agree.
Mary, did you want to say something else?
I do, before we get off the whole subject of the policy. Yes, we need to establish policy. I totally agree with that. So, I have no problem with the motion. But when it comes to the QuickBooks, and here I'm not meaning to offend anyone, I'm thinking down the road. I think only the admin should have access. However, hear me out. The secretary treasurer should have view only. And then any changes that she feels needs to be made should be made through the admin.
And that was actually gonna be what I was gonna say next, because again, we probably all have worked retail, one hand in the till is enough. That way, if something happens, we go, and that was what I was gonna suggest. I would just maybe read only, which I think really any of the board members should be, have.
We
already
have that.
So, yeah, I definitely think, I agree with you, because again, that's the teal, one person should be in it. I think I'm more online with the emails, just in case, again, someone cannot get to it.
Oh, I'm sorry, there's.
I'm usually not patient. So I agree. So I will amend my motion. Who seconded?
I did.
Okay.
Wait, no, she,
I have one more amendment first.
Okay, I'll wait till a minute. So the email, that was the purpose of the email also. But I think that we have to have one central person, like Megan should be the person that is the person that responds, or the president should be the person that responds, whoever, I don't care. But one person should be the person that responds. However, all three of you should be able to read it. Now, of course, you can respond. You'll have the ability to respond, but you shouldn't. And you can use your own email, and that's not a quorum with the
Right.
three. And she's not on the board anyways, but so that's fine. But yeah, that was my thing on the email.
And might I suggest in all of this great scheme of things that the vote should be amended to say direct the attorney to develop a policy, because we want it to be binding. We want it to be,
But can we do that on this agenda item to direct the attorney to?
discussion possible your agenda item was to, oh, you was 3 years, okay.
Well, because it wasn't appropriate for this
That's
agenda
right.
item.
I'm sorry, I'm still on your
Okay.
agenda item.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would want to do, but I just don't know if that's appropriate for this agenda item.
Well, actually, I believe that the president has the authority to go ahead and contact the attorney and say, hey, can you draft us some of this so I can put it on the next agenda so we can look at it? So, I'm sorry, Dorothy, I completely got off subject.
I think Lee had something to say.
What's the backup plan if something happened, Megan? Is there one?
I think now that we've got Deanna as the secretary treasurer, she would probably be the backup.
But I mean the password then.
well, wouldn't that be, couldn't we like seal it and put it in the,
It
It
is.
is, it's-
We'll do
Yeah.
it in the same-
Yes.
Okay.
right, in the event, God forbid.
So we don't have that now though. You're the only one with the password.
Yes.
You haven't written it down anywhere, and we don't have it. In
I
the
think
secret.
it was in the safe,
I believe it is.
but when
Let's make sure.
positions changed, I changed the Gmail password. The QuickBook password hasn't changed. And there was also, right after I first started, there was a motion and an account made for read-only access for QuickBooks. So that's already established. That was sent out, not to the new board. So I made a note to send that out, the password.
And I'd just like to comment on the email. I think it's best to have it all on one email.
Yeah.
And if it's Megan and I that are checking them and responding, that way I don't want to use my personal one, first of all, and then creating one for use for the EDC. Then when I move on, then somebody has to keep track of two. And I just feel like it should all be in one.
I agree. I like that.
I mean, I don't,
Well, sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
My thing is so like for me, I have an email address that I use for Lions Club stuff, and I have an email address that I use for the city stuff, like for my campaign and for EDC stuff. And then I have, of course, my work email. So I have mine compartmentalized. So, for me to say personal email, whatever email you currently use to talk to all of us is what I mean, personal email. The EDC email, Megan should be the only one emailing from that. And then if you read something and you're like, yeah, Megan, I'd like for you to say this, you can email her from whatever email you're currently using for her to funnel to the rest of us.
And I do appreciate her being a filter. So she'll send, a lot of things she takes care of because that's her job, but she'll send things to me. Or whoever. Yes.
Well, remember too, if you use your personal phone to do government business on, your phone becomes subject to the Open Meeting Act. So I highly recommend a different email address for you and one for her. perhaps one for you and I.
So are we creating other email addresses or are we just gonna keep it Bandera EDC at Gmail?
I think we just need the one.
I like the idea of just the one, because
Okay,
it's
so we're
central and
just doing
easier
one.
to pass down just the one.
Just one.
Okay, so
I was gonna amend my motion,
we
but
can
I,
do separate motions if that would be.
but I can't remember what I was gonna amend it to now. I didn't write it down.
Did anybody second that?
Linda.
I'm gonna restate your original motion.
Sure.
Does Megan have it? Megan, do you have it written down?
I withdraw my original motion. Do you withdraw your second? Thank you so much. So I would like to make a motion that Megan and Deanna, yes, thank you, Secretary Treasurer, not a named person, have the passwords to all the EDC digital data. However, the Secretary Treasurer have read-only access, including all the programs and accounts, and the president have access to the email account as well. However, only one person, that would be our administrative assistant, actually use the email to send out emails. That wasn't complicated in that motion for everybody.
And QuickBooks. You want me?
You own, I see that. I'll put that in my motion. I was like, is it dying?
All right,
Just a question on your motion when you said that only she can reply or use it in the event that she cannot, or, you know, she's on vacation, that's not what she wants to do. Would the president then be able to? I'm sorry. Well, I mean, because it happens.
Yeah.
It
We're just covering the
happens.
bases.
Just for the simple fact, you know, she may only check it once a day, whereas she might can check it, you know, if it's time sensitive, so to speak. So sorry.
No, it's great. That's what the discussion's for. I don't take offense.
And my thinking is, I want to be clear, you're not going to get a president's email, is that what I'm hearing?
correct.
Okay. What if I need to contact you about EDC business and I don't want the admin, who's not a board member, to view my email? If she's going to direct it to you, is she going to read all my emails and direct them to you?
She still has her
I think
regular,
that could
she
be,
still has a regular email, the one that she's using now. However you contact her now.
I'll use her personal email.
Sure. If the nature of it is.
Yeah.
So what the mayor, what Suzanne, she's not the mayor when she's on the board of the EDC board, but what Suzanne is trying to say is that she feels like, and we have discussed this with the attorney, we have gotten the attorney's opinion, that most city council members, most EDC members do have the attorneys, or they create their own email address, just like Darcy was saying. I mean, it's perfectly legal to do that. And I'm for doing that. I just want to make sure that we have in place that all of that is EDC data, and that belongs to the EDC to be passed on to somebody else. So let's kind of figure out what we're going to do here. We've discussed this long enough.
Or maybe if it's for Andrea, just put in the subject for president, or I don't know. I just.
Okay, so let's.
Okay,
We
so
can
I
make
guess
it-
for
we can
now,
make a
it's just
separate
going to be
motion.
one. Let's just do
We
that.
can make a separate motion, and the motion was to allow Megan access to QuickBooks, that the secretary treasurer would have read-only, as well as all the other board members, and the president would have passwords to the email address.
And she's looking
Okay, Lisa. All right, all in favor? Okay, none opposed. Okay, board comments and possible future agenda items. Lynn?
I have one comment. We received this, for the city council and EDC members. And what it is a hard hats tour for the Best Western. And you can schedule a tour. It's for the EDC members and the city council members. You can schedule a tour with Corey Reed, the general manager, and they have tours at 8:30 a.m., 10:30 a.m., and 11:30 a.m. And I can have Megan make a copy of this for all of us if you want, so that maybe we can.
Or maybe even, is it an email? Can she just forward it?
Yeah. I think I forward this to you,
To me, yeah, but I
and
don't
you can forward it to Megan, or she can have that.
know. Okay. Yes.
Now that we have a secretary, treasurer, I would really appreciate it from the city standpoint if she would post your agenda, sign your agenda. Jill is our city secretary. She's not a member of the EDC. It's not taking much time for her to do these things, but we need to separate the EDC business from the city business because we are two separate entities. So if we could do that and tend to our own filing cabinet back here in the back, and that sort of thing, I'd really appreciate it.
We did receive an application for consideration of appointments, which will be going before city council. I guess at the next meeting.
Well, y'all can certainly discuss it at a future meeting, but council will be meeting next week to either wait for more applications or to appoint this individual.
Does the applicant live in the city?
Yes.
Okay. I do have one other thing that I would like to discuss, and it would possibly be a project for the EDC to work on, and that is to establish an app for Bandera, for the city of Bandera. So I would like to go out, I would like to discuss that as a board, put that on as an agenda item. That's something that's been discussed for quite a few years now. And I would think that would be an excellent project for this EDC board to complete and accomplish.
I think that's a great budget item.
And especially given these times, people can see what times we're open,
Yes.
who's closed, who's doing what.
And I would really like to include like a lot of the county sites as well, the
Sure.
county historical sites as well on the app. So,
And nonprofits.
and we can do
I've
nonprofits.
actually had people come into my store and have asked if we have.
If we have an app, I mean we're behind right now.
Well,
So I'd like to get,
those categories.
yeah, well, I think that would be an excellent project for this
I
EDC
think-
board to take and accomplish. Yeah.
Nothing, thank you.
Our next EDC meeting is going to be scheduled for August 22nd, 6:30.
May I?
Mine is the budget.
We've got a workshop on Wednesday, August the 13th at 6:30, right?
Yes.
If there's anything pressing, like perhaps a policy about digital that sort of things, we could have a very brief one agenda item meeting prior to the workshop and then go straight into the workshop. But we do this at council.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean?
Your
Digital
motion.
I get,
I didn't make.
I get this,
Well,
Suzanne.
the
I hear you.
policy for the,
I'll talk to you later.
Everybody else is on the same page.
you wanna do it then, or
Oh, okay.
or the regular meeting. I don't think she's
I
in
know.
that big of a hurry.
Yeah, I don't think we have to do that right now. We can do that I put that on the next agenda item.
Anyway, it's just a possibility, but the budget meeting on 13th, right?
Yes.
6:30.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve?
All in favor? Over.
Maybe you need to sit